Agenda item number 5, discussion of wastewater operations.
The digester is discussed in the agenda package. The digester is back up and running. Staff are working on getting that contents emptied, field applied. We're looking at some different ways to empty the equalization lagoons that are out at the plants. It was a capital item that was budgeted this year and in 2 years. We're currently looking for the possibility of leasing some equipment and doing it ourselves to be able to save a considerable amount of money. That's something that has been discussed with staff and the city manager and public works director as we work through part of this budgeting process. And looking at the capital equipment and projects. Had another meeting this morning to go over some of this and try and get things lined up so that the wastewater portion of the budget can be sent away for rate analysis. One of the things that was in there that we've discussed a little bit in past meetings was the possibility of a lead position on the wastewater side. Based on what is in the 2080 as far as requirements and trying to get all of that done, as well as everything on the water side, I do not have the time or resources to accomplish all of that. I had Crystal work up budget numbers for a wage and a benefits package, just to have a number to start with to look at starting January 1st. It does impact the budget for wastewater because it was not something that was included last year. But this is a point to, we need to discuss this and the need for this. Mike and I discussed it a little bit this morning in our meeting. I need to discuss it with this group as well and look at what can be done, what needs to be done that way. As far as trying to get everything done, because there aren't enough hours in the day, and I'm not getting everything accomplished the way it needs to be, and that's not fair to either side. That's not fair to the sewer side or the water side, because they're each getting shorted. So, yes, I'd like some input on this matter, please.
Well, I guess I would like to hear the input from the mayor and Mike Schrock in regards to, is there an opportunity to do this?
I guess I'll start, if you don't mind, Mayor.
By all means.
And Chad and I discussed this morning. When the two entities agreed to the 2080 agreement, there was a staffing plan put together, and I only brought one. So in that staffing plan, it showed 16 full-time equivalent employees split between the two departments. And I would say that was arrived at after I think Chad had proposed another full-time employee for the water side, and then we ultimately agreed to share that position as a utility locates position because I was just trying to keep costs down. That position, or that chart shows that there would be 3 field staff for collection and 1 supervisor position. From what I can tell, Chad's hired 4 field staff, but we don't have a supervisor position. So this would be 1 additional position above what was shown to the city council at the time the agreement was done, 1 additional position above what was shown to the water department. Mid-year, this would be $66,000 something like that, which was not budgeted for, come out of fund balance. I agree there needs to be some relief to Chad on the field side, but I guess what I get concerned about is we talked about 4 total in collections, and now we're talking about 5.
We're talking in addition to the 4, not making one of the 4 a needs position.
At this point, based on what they have for workflow, yes.
I'm sorry, guys, but this is not a very good way for me to participate in the meeting. But can someone please tell me what Mike
So,
said?
so we're looking at the flow chart that was developed during the 28E build out, and where it had a director position, a lead plant operator, and then a plant operator position, a lead collection system, and then 3 full-time equivalent positions within the collections, a lead distribution, water distribution, and 3 full-time equivalents in that, and then office staff with, I think there were 4 there, 3 of which were the office, 1 was customer service rep, and the other, the joint position was the utility locates, which brought about 16 full-time equivalents with all positions being filled.
And you now have the 16 full-time equivalents, and you don't have this person to offload some of the workload that you have to them.
Correct.
Is your staffing correct the way that you have it in regards to the field work that you need done, the plant work that you need done, and the administrative side?
Well, not the administrative side, no, because that's where the need is arising, and from the plant operations and the collection systems, that's most generally that staff is busy, and in some cases they're behind. They're backlogged on what they have for work demand.
Well, but based on the budget that was put together and the staffing or manning chart that was put together, would you rather be behind on the administrative side, or would you rather be behind on the field work side?
Me personally, I'd rather be behind on the field work, but that doesn't do the collection system any favors either. There's been issues with that the way it is. The reason the collection system is, or the work is backlogged now is we've got a lot of work that was agreed to in that 2080 that we've got to have field staff for. And so they are working, trying to get the system jetted and televised, and to get that work completed. And it's still not enough hours in the day to get all of that caught up.
From my understanding, prior to the 2080, how many full-time equivalents would there be in the same group of people between water and wastewater? Was it around 16?
There would have been,
There would have been more?
There would have been less actually filled positions, but
Okay.
we had planned for, when we went into this, we tried to leave as much money on the table expecting full staffing, which would have been, I think, 7 employees.
Rather than part-times or?
That 7
shared.
plus seasonal
Okay,
employees.
okay,
So there was no shared employees at that point in time.
right.
okay.
So we had 10 or 11 before, 10, we had 10 before this, and 1 was being used at the city on a temporary basis, which is kind of what helped drive this, the 2080. And then, yeah, we're taking the one and splitting it between utility locates, and when they're done with locates, then that position's flipping back and forth between either the distribution or collection systems for wastewater. Whoever needs it most, basically. He floats. And what did wastewater? He had the director, he had the lab, and there were 4.
I think there's 7 total.
Okay. So at one point there would have been 17, and now we're at 16. And again, one of the goals of the 2080 was to try and save money, and Mike and I, as part of our conversation today, this arrangement is not saving the city money. Based on, and I say that based on the proposal that was received from People Service for contract operations. Based on that, what we're currently doing is costing more money.
But again, I've said that here before, that was identified because the benefits are higher and staffing was expected to be higher. People Service was going to fluctuate their staff from other places as needed, as things ebb and flow. As they would jet the system, they would send teams in to do that. And then if they had to pull back, they'd pull back. They'd still use contractors to do the repairs. Well, that's what we're doing now. So we're seeing, just off of initial budget numbers, if you were to look at personnel costs alone, with this position, we're talking $300,000 more per year than the People Service proposal. And that's real money. So,
I'm sorry, I can't.
yeah, I'm sorry, I don't carry comparison.
I'm gonna maybe do this once, maybe it'll pick up a little bit better.
And that's not to say that People Service would have been, who knows? I mean, you never know if that would have worked out that way or not, but we're able to identify those numbers just off the proposal. We're gonna have Suzanne, who does our financial advising from PFM for both organizations, take another look at some different performance that she put together early on to see if our numbers are on trend from what we expected or not. I would say probably not, but that would help verify some of the information. Why would we do that? Again, I'm just providing information to the council on the contractual relationship. I mean, that's I think my duty. I stated before, I agree that Chad needs to be less in the field, if possible, more administrative, but mid-year, I don't support adding a position. I struggle with the addition of the position as a 5th to the collection system when we had agreed upon 4. But that's ultimately, you're gonna have that recommendation, the council's ultimately gonna have to adjust the rates for it. We're talking huge rate increases. Keep saying that
Already.
already.
Aside from
Aside from
this
this,
issue.
yes. It'll
Just-
get buried in everything else.
Yeah.
I mean, this position is
The-
peanuts compared to what we're talking about. But it's still it's an additional expense. Everything adds up.
So how much of what is going on here, if you just step back and look at the bigger picture, how much of this is so we underestimated the staff needed. That's kind of what it looks like. The condition of the system, is that contributing to I forget what the
It's
title is.
contributing to the workload, and
Contributing to the workload, so the 4 people that you have, where you only had 3 before, is that because of the condition of our collection system, or is it, there's some other reasons?
And I didn't get to, I think yes, the collection system itself will obviously drive the workload. I guess the question I didn't have a chance to ask you is, when the additional position the last position was filled, why wasn't it advertised as a supervisor? I guess that's what this gets
the
back to.
last position that was filled was a replacement for an employee that had left that wasn't a supervisory position. It was a field staff position that did some of that work, but was not in that position.
Right, it was Bill's position,
Right.
right, but, and again, our plan here showed 4 people. And so,
One supervisor and 3
right,
field.
right, which that supervisor would in essence, be in the field. They're a working supervisor, presumably, I mean, I think that's what you envision. So, I mean, there's your 4, your crew of 4. So do we really need 5, or do we really need 4?
And for some of what I'm thinking administratively, I don't know what the breakdown would be of time spent on this position in the field versus the admin side, because of the level of work that exists to be done that way. It could be more admin than what would be in the field. So,
We're in the, excuse me, we're in the budgeting process right now, correct?
yes,
The process would be, put this in your budgeting process, go through the approval. I mean, it's gonna set you back, what, another 6 months or whatever,
but that, I mean, that's what we're doing. That's, I guess, that's part of the reason for the conversation is
But it wouldn't
this,
start
this was
January 1st.
added, this was put in as a request in the amended budget, and then starting January 1st.
Okay.
And then moving forward in the requested budget for FY 17-18 as a continued position. And so the conversation now is with this group and then also city council. Is it
I'm not much-
realistic? Is it realistic that January 1st is a start date or not? Does, you know, if that's not realistic, then we go back to the budgeting process. But it needed to be, as we're going through this budgeting process, put in there if it's even going to be considered, and then discuss this. And if it's not something that is feasible, and we look at starting it as a July 1st, 17, because then it goes in and it can go into the rate projections and everything else moving forward, and it doesn't affect what's already decided for rates.
I mean, we
The
probably
ongoing-
even need say a job description and, you know, qualifications. I mean, that all has to be built before you even interview.
No, the job description's done. I think the qualifications are in there too. That was all done this summer. Late spring, early summer.
My gut feel is that this seems to fit better in my mind for 17-18 budget rather than amending
I agree.
16-17 budget. That's just my gut feel. I don't know what the rest of the board feels or input from the city side as well. But that's putting a lot of workload on Chad. We need to make it till July before he gets any relief, right? That's the risk that we take if that's the approach.
Or we trigger responsibilities.
I was gonna say,
Yeah, okay.
You're needing some administrative help. And I assume with some standard operating procedures, tracking performance on the 2080 and that kind of thing. Is there anybody on that list that can help carry some of that load,
Well, to some degree there is.
even though it might not be in the job description?
Well, and that, yeah, so there's that side of it. And then there's no, and yes is the short answer.
Then I agree with Kevin that this is not, Kevin and Mike, that this isn't the time to add a position that's delegate.
Is the need for a 5th person or for one of those 4 to
Being supervisor.
take a?
Well, and that's kind of what Mike has
Yeah.
was discussing too, was to
So
take,
and then my next question, are any of those four, in your mind, capable of that?
to some degree. What?
I have a question too.
Okay.
Mike, are we comparing the cost of, how do I say this? Are we comparing costs based on what People Serve was offering up, or are we comparing costs based on what actual costs were for the city prior to entering into 2080?
We are comparing People Services proposal with the budget proposed for 18, just for personnel.
Okay, so we're comparing costs today based on what People Serve offered up in their contract.
Yes, to do everything from, yes.
Okay.
But I don't know that that's necessarily relevant to this conversation. I guess from my view, the strategic view of it is, we had a plan that showed, that we all agreed upon, and maybe that was an error, but we all agreed upon that 4 staff would be sufficient to do the collection system work, and Chad is proposing 5. And so, just like any employee who would be requesting an additional staff member, justify it. Or are there other things that can be done to spread out that work? Or I guess I'm just trying to bridge the gap as to why we didn't follow the plan. That's the question.
You're trying to bridge the gap as to why we're not following the plan?
The staffing plan that was agreed upon by water and council,
Okay.
and city manager's office and Chad.
Well, it's easy to make a plan, Mike, when you don't know what you're getting into. But once you get into it and you start looking at what it is that is required and what has to be done, then it starts getting to be a little dicey sometimes. Now, I understand we should have known as a water board going into this exactly what the expectations were, and I think we knew what the expectations were, and I think we thought that we could do this. But when you actually get in and start laying hands on it, does that mean that you can do what you thought you could do? I don't know about that.
I might agree with that, Mike. I generally agree with that. I would disagree only from the standpoint that if we had a supervisor in place and Chad was saying, hey, we're just not able to get enough done, and I need to add another field staff person, I could buy that a little easier. But now that we have 4 field staff with no supervisor, and then to claim that we need additional.
Well, and I'm not opposed to looking at the duties of the folks that we have, and can we redirect some of those duties and get some administrative help for what we need to do. You know, when I look at what all is required under that 2080 today, as opposed to naive Mike 2 years ago, I see that there's a lot more to this than what any of us in that committee ever expected from the water board side. And so to take a look at current staff and figure out if there's a way that we can handle all this differently and be more efficient with the staff that we have, I think that's appropriate before we automatically go out and start trying to hire someone else.
Chad, what's this look like on a real day situation? Are you the one supervising this group of 4? Or is one of those 4?
One of those 4 has stepped up to take the lead. the concern is that it's a city employee because they have the most experience that way. And in conversations that have happened, there isn't an opportunity at this point. There isn't a position that exists to have any compensation to put anyone in a leadership position that way today.
Well, I'm gonna play devil's advocate here a little bit, but, you know, I wasn't at the last meeting, but at the last meeting, the board authorized the increase in your pay, but now you're telling me you can't do the job.
The increase in pay was
Well, I
based on
understand,
the
I understand
agreement and-
understand what it's
and
for,
a
but
license that was obtained as part of
your
this.
pay was increased, but you're
work.
telling me you can't do the job. There's not a lot of places that would tolerate that.
The pay was increased for getting a license
I
that was
understand that.
agreed to.
I understand that.
Okay.
Wait a minute, what was that conversation?
I'll just say I disagree with that comment.
Didn't figure it to be a popular comment. I'm, just like I said, I'm playing devil's
If
advocate.
you run an organization and you need more employees to make that work, I don't think that's saying that the leader of that organization is not doing their job.
And that's not what I'm saying. He's telling me that he can't perform the position.
No, he's saying he needs support so that he can do his job.
I would disagree with that statement.
All right, well, obviously we've got disagreements here, and so I guess at this point, in regards to what we're doing here, I would say that we table this until next month. We, both sides gather more information. Chad, I'm sure you'll gather more information in regards to what you want, and how you want to do it. And Dan, I guess you'll gather more information in regards to why you think that Chad's not doing his job. And we'll talk about it at that point.
In the meantime, Mike, I would add that we should really explore ways to get this accomplished with the current staff.
I think so too. I think that's the appropriate way to go about it.
Well, I think you have no choice
Shooting arrows here.
till at least July.
Well, yeah, that's probably true, but I don't want to look at it as just our only alternative.
Yeah,
I think there's opportunity
there.
there to get it accomplished.
So,
I'd like,
agenda number,
go ahead, Mike.
number 6, consideration and discussion of pay application number 4 for DeLong Construction